We're ready to go.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Fellas, are you ready? Okay. Will the Thursday, April 10th, 2014 Dune City Council meeting please come to order? It is 7 p.m. Mr. Hilton, can we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Rebecca Reedy,
Here.
Council President Jamie Mills,
Here.
Councilor Richard Anderson,
Here.
Councilor Ed Scarberry,
Here.
Councilor Sheldon Meyer,
Present.
Councilor Marie Sanders,
Here.
Councilor Duke Wells.
Here.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Mr. Administrator. It's a pleasure to have you back. I'm glad you're feeling well.
Getting there.
Good there, okay.
Thank you.
All right, would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilors, I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded that we approve tonight's agenda. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, councilors.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve tonight's consent agenda. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, moving along to announcements. The first Budget Committee meeting will be held April 29th from 2 to 5 p.m. here, and will continue every Tuesday from 2 to 5 p.m. until the budget is approved by the Budget Committee and forwarded to the Council. Volunteers are needed to fill 3 Budget Committee openings, 1 Parks and Recreation Commission opening, and 1 water tester for Silcoos Lake is still needed. Dune City Artist of the Month is resident artist Kenny Henson. Some beautiful oil on canvas paintings are around the perimeter of the council chambers. April birthday wishes to Administrative Assistant Renee Green on the 18th, which is also my mother's birthday. Yeah. And so in celebration, we're going to have cake after the meeting this evening. So we'll, post haste on the meeting. Okay? Yeah? All right. Councilors, any other announcements? All right. Moving along to agenda item number 7, citizen input.
That's the only one we need right now.
And we have Chief Langboard here to provide some input. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Can you hear me now? There we go. Good evening. Jim Langford, Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue. I'm the fire chief. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to address the council, give you some updates on what's going on in your fire department. So wrote a few notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. And if you have questions as I go, please ask, and I'm happy to provide more information. Give you some call statistics from the month of March. We responded to 8 fires, and in that we had 1 significant fire, which was a 3-acre brush fire up off of, I guess that was Canary Road and Fiddle Creek up in there. It was a couple of Sundays ago. We worked on that for a few hours. Search and rescue, we had 4 incidents, including 1 water rescue. It really wasn't a rescue where anybody was injured, but we did have a kayaker that was stuck in the water just outside the spillway outside of Dune City here, and we had to assist with that. Went to 38 medical aids, and what's significant about that is we've increased the number of calls that we're responding to for medical. So that's a change for the department, and I'm implementing it slowly, so in time we'll probably be going to more and more.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
are these area calls for all of SBFR, or are they do city calls? The number?
They are for the entire district.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you wouldn't want that many in your
I wouldn't think so.
little community. which were 3 motor vehicle accidents, and 2 service calls. And service calls can be anything from someone's got a broken water pipe and we help secure the water, squeegee the water out, to maybe assisting someone up off the floor in the middle of the night, that type of thing. So I like to mention that because, get the word out in the community that we are there to provide service to you. So we get called for just about anything, short of taking care of bad guys, and sometimes even in those situations we're part of that. Another announcement that's worth mentioning, we have started what's known as the Blue Card Incident Commander Certification Program. I was certified in El Paso, and we've gotten Chief Tipler certified. And what that is it's the only certification program to ensure that incident commanders have gone through a verified and structured training process to ensure that they're ready to handle multiple types of different house fires and large strip mall fires and those types of things. So it's a 40-hour online, followed by anywhere from 24 to 36 hours of hands-on training. And there's only certain areas in the country that have this. We're understanding that Eugene is turning into a training site, but basically what they do during that 24 to 36 hours is they fight over 200 simulated fires. And so by the time you get done with that, you get pretty dialed in. And we're implementing that throughout our entire department. We've gotten the other chief officers enrolled in the online portion, and hope to have them certified by the end of the summer. And then also along those lines, we've been spending a lot of time with our officer development, with our captains, as well as with our chief officers. So a few things that we're doing is every Friday morning we're having simulators, so we're making sure that our captains are on board with what our chief officers are doing. And then we've also increased that to Monday nights. So I'm going to actually, so that I can do the same thing in the city of Florence that I'm doing with you, I'm going to have to skip one of those in the next couple of weeks to hit their meeting. And we've actually started to turn it into a little bit of hands-on. So tomorrow I'm going to be introducing them to some different types of firefighting techniques. And the goal is to get them up to speed, and then they'll take it down to the firefighters. I think the only other thing worth mentioning is, and I don't mean to steal Mr. Hilden's thunder here, but seeing as though he's been on the injured reserve list for a little bit, I'll give you a little bit of an update of some of the things that we've been doing through WeLog, and that has to do with an active shooter planning committee that I've been working to put together. And where that stemmed from was some training that our fire department participated in with the local law enforcement agencies probably about a month ago. And it was law enforcement heavy, and it was centered pretty much on how to work with them and how they neutralize the threat. But really what that training did for us, particularly from an emergency management standpoint, was made us ask a lot of questions. And we know, we saw it again the other day in Philadelphia. It wasn't a shooter situation, it was a knife situation, but they happen everywhere. And it made us think, well, is our planning in line with the school districts? Is it in line with the cities? Is it in line with law enforcement? Is it in line with the ambulance? To make sure that if and when we do have to respond to something like that, that it goes as well as it can possibly go. So the plan at this time is to put together a subcommittee of stakeholders and then start ensuring that those plans mesh together. And the last thing I'll say is we've got a Facebook page, and we like to put stuff on there, so find us on Facebook, and I'll be quiet unless there's any questions for me.
So your Facebook page is what?
Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue Facebook.
I can send it to you, Becky.
Thank you. Would you care to address some questions?
Would love to.
Okay. Councilor Mills?
Well, I have a question, but first I want to congratulate you on your website updates. It's fabulous. It really is. It's great. If you haven't been on there, you should go svfr.com or something like that. And it's really good. I mean, training and all kinds of stuff is there. I wanted to know if you could give me the name of who I would talk to within the department regarding Homeland Security dollars. I'm not sure how that works. I know the state gets a big chunk of money from Homeland Security if they apply, and I don't know if they have. And secondly, we have been talking about the acquisition of some land for a couple of purposes, one of which would be storage of emergency supplies in the event of an emergency. And so we were thinking, well, there might be some funding out there available that we can use to leverage some of our own dollars to acquire the property that we've been talking about possibly looking into getting. And I was hoping you could just look it up and give me a name
Well,
of who
I
I've
would
talked
be
to.
the contact, both I would, for WeLog and for the department, and, excuse me, be happy to look into that a little bit. I came across a website the other day that had some information about government grants. I can tell you though that they're getting tighter, and they're getting more and more competitive, particularly as the budget cuts continue to happen. But
Right, Grants
I could-
does have that one Homeland Security, but it goes to the state. And I go to the state website and I can't figure out, you know, how you get on their list.
Linda Cook might be a good source
So,
of information.
And perhaps Linda would be the best place to go, so. Anyway, I'd love to work with you on something like that. Thank you.
Councilor Anderson?
I think we'd like to invite the fire people to list on our website as well as a referral back and forth.
yeah, if you want to link to us, we'd love that, and we'll do that back if that's fine.
We already have a link to you.
Okay, and then we can link to you if that's what you'd like. You bet.
Absolutely.
Great idea. Anyone else? Thank you so much, Chief.
Just one last thing, I promise I'll shut up. Councilwoman Mills mentioned our webpage. On our webpage, under disaster preparedness, we do have several videos in there, and along the theme of the active shooter, we've placed links to 3 YouTube videos. And I would encourage yourself and everybody in here to watch those videos. I'll tell you right now, they're graphic and they're not fun to watch. But it's good information, and should you ever find yourself in that situation, you'll probably be glad that you did watch those videos. Thank you very much.
Chief, was that the same videos that were shown at the WeLog meeting?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna talk about that in my mayor's report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along. We have a public hearing, ordinance on number 226, amending the Dune City Comprehensive Plan to adopt the Dune City Master Road Plan as the city's local transportation system plan. So we're going to change the name, and we will be repealing ordinance 171 and 200 and the 2004 Dune City Master Road Plan. So, your script is, this evening we will have a public hearing on ordinance 226, amending the master transportation provision of the Dune City Comprehensive Plan. These proceedings will be recorded. This hearing will be held in accordance with the land use procedures required by the city and the state of Oregon. This is a type 4 legislative procedure. During the hearing tonight, staff will identify the applicable substantive criteria. These are the criteria that we must use in making the decision. All testimony and evidence must be directed toward these criteria or other criteria which you believe applies to the decision. Any party interested in a land use matter may challenge the qualifications of any counselor to participate in such a hearing and decision. Such challenge must state facts relied upon by the party relating to the counselor's bias, prejudice, prejudgment, conflict of interest, or other facts from which the party has concluded that the counselor will not make a decision in an impartial manner. Does any counselor wish to declare a conflict of interest or bias at this time? Okay.
Mayor, I don't know if this would be
Councilor Sanders?
a bias to declare, but I didn't write this when it originally came out, but I was heavily involved in some of the amendments to it. And because I wrote it, I suppose there's a bias, but I don't remember which amendments I made to it. So I lay it out
I don't think that's necessarily a bias.
No, any
Okay.
counselor wish to challenge Counselor Sanders on a basis of bias? Hearing none, we'll proceed.
there. Thank you.
Does any council or member of the public wish to challenge a counselor? Member of the public? Okay. I will now open the hearing at 7:16 p.m. 7:16. Could we have a staff report, please, Mr. Hilton?
Thank you, Mayor. The staff report follows the two-page ordinance number 226 that's in your council packets tonight, and it's listed as Exhibit A.
Okay.
I plan to, it's 26 pages in length. As this ordinance pertains to the state's local transportation system planning rule, that document, I believe, is some 600 pages long. So it shouldn't be surprising that we have a 26-page staff report with the appropriate findings of fact for all of the bits and pieces that go along with that. I do want to take time to cover several points. I'm going to begin on page 1 and basically read page 1 and 2 into the record. I'll talk briefly about notices, and then I want to follow up on some other items throughout the staff report. So the date of this report is April 10th, 2014. It's a staff report and findings of fact for the Dune City Council. The proposal description: the proposal is to amend the Dune City Comprehensive Plan by repealing and replacing the 2004 Dune City Master Road Plan with the 2013 Dune City Master Road Plan, the city's local transportation system plan, otherwise listed here as Exhibit A. The Master Road Plan was established in 2004 by Dune City Master Road Plan Ordinance number 171 to comply with Dune City Comprehensive Plan. On January 23, 2014, the Dune City Planning Commission initiated legislative amendments to the city's comprehensive plan by holding a public hearing to appoint the Citizen Advisory Committee made up of citizens interested in providing feedback on proposed changes to the city's master road plan. No citizens applied for appointment to the CAC. On February 10, 2014, Dune City staff mailed the required notice of proposed change to a comprehensive plan or land use regulation form to Oregon's Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD. On March 27, 2014, the Dune City Planning Commission held a public hearing to hear citizen comments on the proposed changes to the city's master road plan and to review a proposed ordinance to repeal and replace ordinance number 171 that established the original master road plan in October of 2004. One of the next paragraph is one of the slight differences between this staff report and the staff report that went before the Planning Commission. The city is seeking an exemption under OAR 660-012-0055, paragraph 6, to relieve the city of the state transportation planning rule requirements, OAR 660-012-0020, subparagraph 2A, C, D, and H, allowing the city to address those requirements only to the extent they are relevant to the unique attributes of the city of Dune City. One of the things you need to recognize is that Dune City doesn't have many of the transportation features that larger cities would have, like a commercial air industry or a commercial shipping industry, a commercial rail industry, or a commercial trucking industry. So we're going to apply for an exemption to those kinds of considerations under the transportation planning rule. Going on, background. The proposed local transportation system plan, master road plan, is an update of the original Dune City Master Road Plan and represents the city's vision for the future transportation and maintenance system while remaining consistent with the state plans, the city's comprehensive plan, and other local plans and policies. The plan provides the necessary elements for adoption by governing bodies into the city's comprehensive plan. The state of Oregon planning rules require a TSP to be based on a city's current comprehensive plan and land use map, and to accommodate the expected projected 20-year population and employment numbers. The contents of the Dune City Transportation System Plan, Master Road Plan Update, are guided by the Oregon Revised Statutes 197.712 and the Department of Land Conservation and Development Administrative Rule known as the Transportation Planning Rule. These laws and rules require the following of jurisdictions: a road plan for a network of arterial and collector streets. Just a quick comment there as a consideration. The only arterial and collector streets that Dune City has within its city limits are actually Lane County roads. These would be roads like Pacific Avenue out front here and Clear Lake Road and some of those. I know we don't have any arterial streets that are Dune City's maintenance responsibility, and I don't believe we have any collector streets. Huckleberry might be a collector street, but I'm not sure. A bicycle and pedestrian plan, an air, rail, water, and pipeline plan, a transportation financing plan, and policies and ordinances for implementing the TSP. The Transportation Planning Rule requires a transportation system plan to incorporate the needs of all users and abilities. The Transportation Planning Rule also requires local jurisdictions to adopt land use and subdivision ordinance amendments as needed to protect transportation facilities and to provide bicycle and pedestrian facilities between residential, commercial, and employment institutional areas. Local jurisdictions are also required to coordinate with county, regional, and state transportation system plans. Dune City's first local transportation system plan / master road plan was called the Dune City Master Road Plan, initially created in 2000 and subsequently adopted by Ordinance Number 171 in 2004. The 2014 TSP is the result of a significant effort by an all-volunteer Dune City Road Commission, a contract public works director, members of the Dune City Planning Commission, and many other volunteers and consultants over the course of 2 years and dozens of meetings. In compliance with statewide Planning Goal 1, the Dune City Planning Commission, the Committee for Citizen Involvement for the city, attempted to establish a citizen advisory committee to review the proposed 2013 Master Road Plan, Local Transportation System Plan that amends the 2004 Master Road Plan. The Planning Commission publicized public notices about the formation of the CAC and held a public hearing to appoint citizen applicants to the CAC. No citizens applied to the CAC and none were appointed. The Planning Commission then served as the CAC for reviewing the 2013 Master Road Plan. On March 27th, the Dune City Planning Commission held a public hearing for citizen input on the proposed Master Road Plan and the proposed ordinance to amend the city's comprehensive plan. The Dune City Council will hold a public hearing on April 10th where public input will be solicited and the proposed ordinance to amend the city's comprehensive plan will be read. All of the aforementioned factored into the shaping and development of the proposed local transportation system plan. That's a mouthful. By way of notice and referrals that are covered on page 3, all of the appropriate notice and referrals have been sent out associated with this update to our comprehensive plan, the transportation provisions of our comprehensive plan. The applicable criteria that must be considered are all of the elements of our comprehensive plan, our own development code, specifically Chapter 155, Section 412D, the Type 4 procedure, which we're following tonight, Oregon statewide planning goals, and Oregon revised statutes. At this time, I want to kind of flip back to page 7 and draw your attention to the middle of the page. Our comprehensive goal F14. The city will develop a master transportation plan that includes an inventory of existing streets, bike and pedestrian ways and their condition, prioritizes need improvements and estimated costs. And the finding that this proposal is consistent with this policy because the plan includes an inventory of existing streets, bike and pedestrian ways, and their condition, prioritizes needed improvements and estimated costs. That's probably the most significant element of, in my opinion, of the findings. I'm sure that all of you have had an opportunity to review the other findings and how these findings are all met by this ordinance and related exhibits. The other thing that I want to mention, jumping back quickly to page 26, there's actually a meeting, and I don't believe we provided the council with a revised page 26, did we? Did we? Including the recommendation?
No.
Okay. There's an amendment that I want to make to the staff report on page 26, and that basically that amendment will change item 6 from conclusion to item 7, and there will be a new item 6, and that new item 6 I'll read to you. It basically is just documentation of the Planning Commission's recommendation. It's titled Section 6, Recommendation. On March 27, 2014, the Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend that the title of the Master Road Plan be changed to Master Transportation Plan as called for in Policy F14 of the Dune City Comprehensive Plan, and recommended that the City Council adopt Ordinance number 226. Staff recommends that the Council adopt the findings of fact as amended by the Master Road Plan title change. Staff also recommends Council adopt Ordinance number 226 as presented tonight. Thank you. And anybody have any questions?
Counselor, do you have any questions? I have a question. Mr. Hillman, do you have a recommendation regarding page 40 that addresses the emergency events and other unforeseen events?
You know, this, thank you. Recognizing that you're talking about emergency events, the reference to Dune City Chapter 3249.
Yeah. Yes.
Knowing that we're looking at amending Chapter 32 with Ordinance 225, we probably should take that into account as it relates to this. You know, one of the things that could be done to make this easily clarified would be that we declare the Director of Roads, the Chair, Vice Chair, Director of Roads may declare a road emergency. We could insert that single word in front of emergency. And that would be another way of dealing with this emergency clause.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll perhaps talk about that when it's the counselor's turn to address it.
Okay.
How's that sound? Thank you. Thank you very much. Any counselors have any further questions of staff? Okay. We will be taking testimony from all those who wish to comment. Please sign in and include your name. Do we have any person? Okay. Oh, all right. I will now hear testimony from the opposed, if any. So, Bonnie, are you opposed or?
I am for.
You are for, okay. Is there anyone in the audience that is opposed? Hearing none, we'll move along, all right. I will now hear testimony in favor of the plan. And Ms. Allen, would you care to come forward?
Yes, it would. Thank you.
Okay.
Would you like me to identify myself?
Yes,
further?
please do so and state whether or not you're a Dune City resident.
I'm
And then-
Bonnie Allen. I'm a Dune City resident. I live at 83618 Sauer Drive.
Oh, thank you. And Ms. Allen, you'll have 3 minutes for your comments.
Perfect.
All right?
I would like to ask a question about page 55 of 81, which is chapter 5. This is talking about Dune City Road Department job descriptions. Forgive me if I'm ignorant or just plain wrong on this, but I did have some questions. I see that section 5.2 discusses the responsibilities of a road commission secretary, and 5.3 the responsibilities of a director of roads. I wonder if these are new positions to be created and filled.
No, they are not new positions. These are existing positions. The road secretary is currently Laura Lee Lorenzen. She's an administrative assistant by official title. That position has traditionally worked approximately 15 hours a week, doing meeting agendas and minutes for the road commission meetings. The director of roads is a contract position that's approved by the budget committee every year. I believe this year we approved a budget of somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,400 for that position. That's ballpark, yes.
Filled,
They're ongoing,
budgeted.
they're ongoing
Right,
positions.
okay, that was my question. On page 7 of 53,
On page 7 of 53.
7 of 53 in the
Appendix.
Appendix A. Dune City Mass Road Plan Appendix A, page 7 of 53.
Uh-huh.
I see that the percentage of work to be accomplished in 2014 and 2015 is substantially greater than in the other years. And I was wondering if there was a particular reason for us attacking work with such alacrity.
Would you like to address that,
I was going to ask,
Maury, or you want me to?
Counselor Sanders, do you want to address it, or?
Basically, part of the reason for that number looking larger than you might otherwise expect it to be is we have postponed. We did a substantial amount of work in 2009 in resurfacing and slurry sealing, pretty much, not all of, but a large percentage of the streets. And it really brought the pavement condition index way up on the city streets in general. So it's allowed us to postpone work that might otherwise have needed to be done, where you would kind of project an annual budget. And so we've kind of let that stack up in front of us for 2014 and 2015.
I see. And then,
Very good observation.
just
Good
curious,
question.
finally on page 15 of 53,
Say again, please.
15 of 53 in the Appendix A. There's a listing of private roads. And on page 19 of 81 of the original document, I see a map, and I was chagrined to see that Souter Drive, my resident, I couldn't find it on the map. And I was wondering if there was a reason why it wasn't included, or maybe I missed it. Souter Drive is just opposite Manzanita off of Clear Lake.
Well,
Yes.
my road plan says the Sauer Drive is listed under private roads.
Well, but her point is it's not shown on page 19 it includes a map. That's just that's a really good observation.
Okay.
And we can add that.
Great, because all the other, I could not find Harmony Lane either, but I could find the other private roads.
Okay.
that it?
That concludes my
And I do
observations.
apologize, your time is very likely to be along way more, because we had a problem with the time. So
Thank you very much.
Free for all, okay.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you so much. Counselors, do you have any questions of anyone that testified? Is there anyone else in the audience that would care to testify in favor? Hearing none, I will close the hearing at 7:35. Okay, moving along to new business. We are at agenda item number 9, new business. We'll begin deliberation and decision regarding ordinance 226, amending the master road plan. So this is an action item, and Mr. Hillman, are you ready? Okay.
So, possible actions before the council tonight regarding deliberation and decision regarding ordinance number 226 would include approving or adopting ordinance 226 as it exists. You could propose alternatives to 226 in terms of changes to text or words that you might find are necessary or appropriate. And I would suggest those would be the kinds of things that would go beyond what we might call a Scrivener error, like the omission of a private street that Mrs. Allen pointed out. Or you could choose to table action on it, or you could choose to deny adoption of it. It largely is obviously at the discretion of the council. Our charter provides that all of the powers within the city lie in the hands of the council, and that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Well, thank you. And do councilors have any comments? Councilor Mills?
I have brought some proposed language. I'm concerned, we want to, in my mind anyway, we want to make sure that the master plan coincides or agrees with the chapter 32 provisions. So I drafted language based on our last conversation at the last meeting, and have that to present tonight as a possible amendment to both ordinance 225 and to the master road plan.
So we would discuss it now in
Right.
in the interest of 226.
Can I suggest that we, however chapter 32 changes will amend the master road plan? So I would really like, since the language you crafted is for 225, ordinance 225, which is on the agenda downstream, can I propose that we hold that discussion until that point, and whatever is decided at that point, we'll go back and change the master road plan?
You wouldn't do it now in the master road plan since
Well,
you're
there's
considering
more,
first?
the only
I'll
reason
take Maury to see the language first.
the only reason, it's not gonna make, the only reason I would propose that is, that we do it that way, is there could be several other things we get into in the discussion of chapter 32.
Oh, I'm sure there will be.
And why muddy the master road plan water with all of that discussion right now?
Okay. So whatever you.
That's all. That's the only reason I would propose doing it this way.
Is that okay?
Well, I don't know, I guess we have to go through CIC and everything again, I'm in the master road plan again?
No.
Then how can you do it?
Well, that's a reference, Jamie. So that when chapter 3249 changes, that will automatically change in the master road plan. You know, it's one of the dangers we confront ourselves with every time we put code in code. So, you know, we can change that reference to just reference 3249. We don't need to put the detail in it. That would be another option.
I guess I don't understand, but okay.
Well, let's talk about it until we understand, because it's important that we all understand this. Any other clarifying words? You're not?
I'm fine at this time.
Okay. Councilor Sanders, do you have comments to
Yes.
shed a light on this?
Page 55 of 81. thanks to Bonnie, there's a scrivener error where we got section 5.3 mentioned twice. We might want to reflect that to be a 5.4 instead of a 5.3.
Page what, Counselor?
55 of 81. There's two section 5.3s listed. It's a scrivener error.
Corrected.
Question I have, the question I have is, deals with the appendixes to this master transportation plan. How do we correct the name of this to reflect master transportation plan? Side question. The appendixes. Once we get a master transportation plan adopted by ordinance, can the appendixes be changed by administrative action, by resolution of the council? By what process?
It's my understanding that the appendixes can be changed by administrative action.
Okay? That may be a subject for discussion if the council wants to. In regard to the emergency events and other annual fund set-asides, where that language for the emergency Dune City Chapter 3249 is referenced,
What page was that on again?
that's page 40 of 81.
Okay.
It's to me, it's kind of redundant to put, like you said, code in code. That section talks about emergency events and other annual fund set-asides. Currently, the city, in its budgeting process, in the road fund, has a contingency line item for emergencies, which we've used for the Ocean Boulevard project, for example. And as long as I've been involved with the budget committee, there's been an emergency budget line, so by action, the council is in compliance with what this plan calls for. I don't see the need for having the code in there, because if it's already in the code elsewhere, it governs.
Right. That was my point exactly. You know, we could just change that to, we'd either eliminate it, or we could amend this by eliminating that paragraph, or we could just state that, refer to Dune City Code Chapter 3249 for emergency road procedures, or something like that. Whatever the council chooses to do, I'm totally happy with that suggestion. I strongly urge us not to get in the habit of putting code in code.
That's a recommendation that we will adopt and go forward. Counselors, let's talk about this, what the suggestions are. Do we have any further comments? What is your preference, Counselor?
I'd like to see it out, because it's talking about fund set-asides, it's not talking about emergency procedures. And I think we're talking apples and oranges. And let's just keep the oranges in here and talk about commencing with the fiscal year budget. We could even just say, every annual budget of the city shall possess an emergency expenditure line item. And just leave it at that, because that's what we are in practice doing. And that simplifies
Good
it.
idea. That's
I like that.
good language. Counselor Meyer?
I agree with that. I like that.
Okay.
I think it needs to be simplified. I agree.
Okay. Counselor Wells, okay?
Yep.
Counselor Mills?
I think it's a little confusing, the way the header is emergency events and other annual fund,
Yeah.
like it's a little, it's a little confusing to me. So I would say if we take it out, that'd be fine.
All right. How about you, Counselor Scarberry?
That makes sense.
Okay. Do we need a motion to this effect, or just agree that we're gonna do that?
Well, you would, when you make a motion, you should make a motion to amend the master road plan as such, and then at the time you make the motion to adopt the ordinance 226, you would say as
Yes.
amended.
Do we need a series of motions to amend? Like,
Yes.
I would make a motion to amend the title of the document from master road plan to be master transportation plan.
Okay.
Okay, and then we go from there, just item by item.
All right, so,
There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
all right, it's been moved and seconded that we amend the title to Master Transportation Plan. Any discussion, counselors? We're good? Okay. Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, one down. I'll entertain a motion regarding whether or not to include this paragraph on page 40 regarding emergency events and other annual fund set-asides.
I will make a motion that we delete the paragraph under emergency events and other annual fund set-asides, subsection emergency unforeseen events on page 40 of 81.
Okay?
To delete the first paragraph beginning with Dune City Code, chapter 3249, and ends with the last words of alleviate the hazardous condition with an S in parentheses in its entirety.
Well, what about the commencing with the fiscal year?
That would be another.
Point of order, we have a motion on the floor.
Correct. I'm just wanting to help him clarify.
You should get a second and do that under discussion.
Okay, second?
Second.
Discussion.
Councilor Mills seconded the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah,
I would like to,
I apologize,
Mayor.
Counselor.
I'd like to amend my motion if the second is agreeable to change the second paragraph to read that Dune City Road Fund budget will have a expenditure line item established in road funds for unforeseen emergencies. Just leave it at that.
I will agree to that.
Move second. All right, so,
Motion
All those-
amended and seconded as amended.
all right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay. Any further discussion? Counselor Mills?
May I ask the recorder a question?
Absolutely.
Would it be possible to get an updated map from LCOG for the appendices? I mean, you said that's administrative,
Sure.
right? So
Yep.
we can get a nice one so that your road will be there?
And thank you, Counselor, because I also had a comment that it just seemed to be real worn and, yeah, you know, it'd be nice to have clearer visuals on the maps if it's possible.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this?
Did you want to ask Rick where the mayor's house is, or?
No, we don't want to answer where the mayor's house is, or a counselor.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that the council adopt ordinance 226 as amended.
All right, is there a second to the motion on the floor?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we adopt this ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Mills?
Another question.
Certainly.
I understand quite some time ago, this body, not necessarily made up of these individuals, adopted an ordinance without specifically adopting the findings, and I'm wondering if we need to specifically adopt the findings.
Or accept the findings?
Thank you, Council President. That's a really, really good point of order. Technically, the council should adopt the staff report and findings of fact as amended, because I added that recommendation clause, so that should be adopted prior to adoption of the ordinance. I'm sorry.
Mayor, I'd like to withdraw my motion, if the second will bear with me.
agree.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the staff report of findings of fact for ordinance 226 in its entirety,
As amended.
as amended.
Second.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to adopt the findings of fact and staff report as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. We'll entertain a motion for adoption of the plan now. Councilor Mills?
Yes, I would move to adopt the master transportation plan as amended under ordinance number 226.
Okay,
Does that work? I'm all backwards, but
is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
We moved and second that we adopt ordinance 226. Any further discussion before we adopt it? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay. Whew. Moving along to,
Yeah.
oh, certainly, Councilor Mills?
I'm sorry, I meant to say this during comment earlier, but I want to congratulate the road commission, all of them, over the years that it took to put this together, because it's a wonderful document. I like the way, I think it's gonna serve the city well.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
It's a huge amount of effort,
Oh, man.
just a big,
Right.
big amount of time. The planning commission played a huge role in it. And even up through recently, staff has done an incredible amount of work on it. So, you know, we amended the final version that was adopted tonight to include ordinance 224, which repealed the no brushing plan that was adopted at last month's council meeting. So we just, you know, we've tried to make it as up to date and accurate as we possibly could. So thank you, and thank you for the attention you've given to it, council.
You're welcome. Okay, item B under new business, charter franchise agreement. Yeah. Mr. Hilton?
Thank you, Mayor. Every year or two, actually every few years, I believe it's 10, we update our franchise agreement with Charter Cable. This agreement was originally instituted under the name of Falcon Cable, when Falcon Cable was in business, subsequently bought out by, I believe, another firm, and then subsequently bought out by Charter. And so they're still doing business as Charter. I'm requesting that the council approve an extension to the agreement, which expires this April, and extends it until October, so that we have an opportunity to renegotiate the agreement and do the best job possible of putting together an agreement for the city. As all of you know, the cable industry business is changing at the speed of light, literally. And one of the things that I want to do is evaluate what some of the other cities in Lane County are doing relative to things like fiber optics and so on. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to revisit the contract, but rather than just re-sign the existing contract, both Mary Rohr at Charter Communications and I agree that we'd like to execute an extension agreement, and I'd like the council's approval to do that.
Okay. Should we have a motion to do that?
Please, if you agree.
May I ask, what is our remuneration to us?
It's the maximum that currently is allowable by law, and I believe it's 5%, Counselor.
Which amounts to,
$3,000 or $4,000 a year.
okay,
It's a substantial amount of money.
thank you.
Councilor Mills?
This is probably better done in discussion, so I'm going to move that we authorize the execution of the extension agreement as presented by staff tonight for purposes of discussion.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
It's moved to second, that we authorize staff to negotiate this contract. Any discussion? Councilor Mills?
I have a question. Actually, I have two questions. One is, in the last League of Oregon Cities bulletin, it said that the legislature had changed some basic provisions about franchising.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, I mean, to me, it seems reasonable to think that you need some time to look at those too, to make sure that if we can go up to 6% or something else, that we get the full benefit of that.
Absolutely.
And
I'm aware of the notification, but I haven't had an opportunity to read it.
Check into it. And secondly, is there a need to, we still have that franchise committee in place. It's currently still in code. We haven't done away with it. Is there a need to, I guess that's a question I would pose to the council. Do you think there's a need to reinstate the committee, or do we have faith in our city administrator?
Those are the three choices.
Whatever, I trust that, you know, I'm fine with the council reinstating the committee. Actually, I don't know if the committee was ever disbanded. I have done some research on
It
that.
still exists.
Well, the committee exists, but the people obviously would long since have changed.
Oh, yeah.
So, in any case, whatever, in terms of modifications to the franchise agreement, I will present those to council before they are ever presented to charter. So it's up to you if you want to choose to have another subcommittee or if you want the city administrator to do it.
It's the pleasure of the council.
Sounds like a city administrator
Aye.
I agree.
So the motion on the floor is that we allow our city administrator to negotiate this. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, we'll look forward to your report.
Thank you.
Next is medical marijuana dispensaries moratorium. I've learned that we have until the 1st of May to make a decision on this moratorium. After doing some research, the moratorium would apply for 1 year, ending in May 1st of 2015. And do we have some background, Mr. Hilden, that you'd like to
Yeah,
discuss?
when the state of Oregon decided to allow medical marijuana dispensaries for those people that had an approved medical marijuana card, obviously the question started coming before cities to how they get licensed. And people started applying for business licenses. Cities were concerned about whether or not they, where was all this going to go? The whole legality question. Most cities' business license agreements, including our code for our business license, states that the business has to be in compliance with state and federal laws. Well, the state of Oregon has legalized medical marijuana, but it's still illegal at the federal level. So there comes a question about, are we approving a business license for something that's still in violation of federal law, even though it's clearly been allowed by the state of Oregon? And in fact, there are medical marijuana dispensaries opening all over the state of Oregon. So some cities had been concerned about denying the business licenses to those people that might want to open a medical marijuana dispensary.
Sounds like a smoke.
Yeah. What have I been smoking? And the problem is that if the city denies it, the problem that was perceived is if cities deny it, people could sue them saying, well, this is a lawful business that's been made legal by the state of Oregon, and if you don't give me a business license, I'm a legitimate business, I have all the right to have a business license. It could create chaos for the cities. So what the state of Oregon decided to do to try and give the cities a little bit of reprieve was they created Senate Bill 1531, which basically allows the city to declare a moratorium on medical marijuana facilities for 1 year, while the state kind of sorts through what's going to happen with this. And what it does is essentially, if the council decided that you wanted to declare a moratorium on medical marijuana facilities for 1 year, we would have to adopt an ordinance to do that. We would have to do it by May 1. You say, well, this is the only council meeting we've got in April, and that is a true statement. We do have a budget committee meeting scheduled for April 29th, so it would be very simple to either make the first half hour of that or the last half hour of that, or add a half hour before or after to convene a special session of the city council to adopt an ordinance to put that moratorium in place. I didn't really want to push staff through the effort of doing that, especially under the circumstances with the full plate that we had. So I had the mayor put it on the agenda just to talk about. Council President Mills, in all of her wisdom, took the time to go ahead and bang out what is basically the ordinance that we would need to adopt. And I'm going to have Renee go ahead and distribute that to everybody. Again, this is only on the agenda tonight as a discussion, possible action item. I mostly would like to know how the council feels about medical marijuana dispensaries in Dune City. I guess I would also point out that they would be restricted to commercial and industrial land. Dune City only has 2 zoning codes right now, residential and commercial. And most of the commercial, I believe all of the commercial land is already developed, but that still wouldn't prevent somebody that currently has developed commercial land in Dune City from requesting a medical marijuana dispensaries license. So I think that's pretty much the extent of what I have to, of the information I have to provide the council with.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Wells?
Have we had any anybody trying to apply?
No. Thank goodness.
How many people are actively growing marijuana medically in this community already?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I have a pretty good idea,
Okay.
You know who they are.
but that's only my opinion. I just thought I would ask it.
Well, it's obvious to me that, there's a lot of thought that needs to go into our preparing for this, and I think that if we were to use this opportunity to do that, it would give us at least a year to perhaps form a subcommittee to look into it and maybe make a recommendation to us. And so I think it would be prudent in the best interest of the citizens to do it. There was language offered, and Jamie's parlayed it into an ordinance that we could look at, so we could review this and take a look at that. So, Councilor Scarberry?
One question I have, as far as zoning, if someone applied for a home business, what would be the procedure if your next door neighbor wanted to apply for a business license to run out of their garage? Has that been addressed any place?
It's my understanding, and I'm not 100% sure, but it's my understanding that the state statute that was passed allowing medical marijuana facilities stipulates that they cannot be in residential areas. They have to be in commercial or industrial, and there's some additional stipulations. They have to be more than so many feet from schools and so on and so forth.
But Mike, I'm wondering though, if someone came in front of the council and if we didn't have a moratorium on this, and they sit there and they ask us, you give me reasons why I can't have a home-based business when other people are doing that in town. That's my big concern, is where it filters out of a commercial or industrial zoning into residential based on some loophole someplace.
So that exposure would exist everywhere in the state of Oregon, wouldn't it? Based on what I'm hearing. And I think the answer to that is that the state has stipulated that it can't exist in residential zoning. But again, I'm not 100% sure on that, Counselor.
Councilor Anderson?
My memory doesn't serve me completely, but it seems to me that a few years ago, didn't we turn down someone who wanted to put a brewery in their...
No, we actually approved it.
We approved it.
In a residential area. Is that correct?
What's that?
Was it in a residential area?
Yes. And that was, that was a legitimate conditional use application and conditional use situation. And Renee just pointed out to me that, in fact, on page 2 of Senate Bill 1531, line 6 of page 2 says that it must be located in an area that is zoned for commercial, industrial, or mixed use, or agricultural land.
So all we have is commercial at this point.
Right.
Very
We have
little- very
residential
little-
and commercial.
But we have very little commercial
Right.
opportunities for a business under the statute.
Any further discussion, Councilor Mills?
Yes, I would agree with you. I think, and actually it goes toward Councilor Scarberry's point. Buy us a year of time to look at it. I myself would love to see us get some dollars off of it somehow, but again, that's gonna take at least a year to figure out how that works. If if we choose to allow them at all. As I understand, we do have one ag land, but it may have converted at this point, because there's a lot of stuff going, I don't know. But, anyway, that's my thought. I agree with you. I say we need at least a year to look at this. And I would suggest that we instruct staff to, issue notice for a special meeting, say immediately before the budget committee meeting or immediately after or something, so that we can address this issue.
And have a special session,
Yeah.
okay? Counselor Sanders?
I would like to ask the members of the council to tell me exactly on the last whereas.
Oh, sorry,
It's a
I missed
very,
one.
it's a bad day for me, I apologize. The city believes this is, I understand this is boilerplate from staff, it's basically what's being used statewide, but I'd like to, this is medical marijuana is lawful activity in the state of Oregon. The state of Oregon has given us permission to do a moratorium. And we're saying in this thing that it's in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Dune City to enact such a moratorium. If this is medical marijuana for people's health, and I don't even want to go down the road of how the voters were able to determine what is medically necessity when you have things like Dr. Anderson over here that I would look to for those expert medical opinions and not the general voter of the state. But how are the interests of the health of the citizens of this community adversely impacted by a medical marijuana dispensary? How is the safety? Since it's a lawful activity, I don't think you can make the argument it will draw crime or criminal element. And how is the welfare of the citizens impacted by this? And why are we saying it would be in the best interest? I'd like to have that articulated before, we make any decision to go further, because that to me is the crux of a reason for a moratorium. We don't have schools. We have very little land that is potentially exposed to this. They're talking about surveillance systems. I mean, we could go to the business code, and Councilor Mills, you talk about proceed to get money. I mean, we could even set, because of the leading edge of this type of thing, a very high business license fee if somebody wanted to do it. I don't know, but I really would like to have the council's thoughts on how this moratorium impacts the citizens of our community, like this whereas statement stipulates. Thank you.
I will restate the fact that I believe it's premature to just go headlong and allow these things without us sitting down and thoughtfully considering things that you're speaking about and coming to a business decision on how we're going to handle this. I mean, this has obviously come up and in a very fast manner. And, it's not going to hurt my feelings to take the whole paragraph out. But I think that it's prudent that we look at this and give ourselves some time to sort these things out.
I understand that from the legislative. I'm talking in terms of what the language says of how we say it's in the best interest of the health of the citizens or the safety of the citizens. You're talking from a legislative standpoint, and I'm not arguing that I disagree with you.
Yeah.
I would just like to hear why we're making this assertion. This is medical marijuana. I have my own personal opinion about it, and that's neither here nor there. But the law, they made it legal. And by us doing nothing, would invite anybody to come in here and get a business license, and they would follow our current law. If we take a proactive action and put a moratorium, that's 1 year's time. And I'm okay with that too. I would just like to know why we're saying this, because I haven't heard anybody say why it's in the best interest of the safety of our community or the welfare of our community. We would be passing this just on the basis of allowing us to look at it, but I'd just like to have something articulated for the record as to why we're looking at this and doing it.
Councilor Anderson, you have the floor.
I just wonder if we wouldn't benefit from maybe contacting some of the other cities of our size and see how they're handling this. We might learn something and have a different approach.
Well, the city of Florence has adopted this moratorium, and the majority of the cities in Lane County have also. And, you know, I don't believe that now, or this is the platform to discuss the particulars. I feel that we need to make a decision on the big picture here. Do we or do we not want to hold a special session to consider the adoption of the moratorium? That's the issue at point right now for discussion.
I have no problem with a special session to discuss it, Mayor. I have no problem at all.
So do we need a motion, Councilor? Or Mr. Hilton?
No, not necessarily. If you know, if it's a consensus of the council to hold a special session, let's just get it scheduled.
Consensus of opinion, councilors, to hold it prior to our budget meeting?
Sounds good.
Prior to our budget meeting, 1 hour before?
I would think we'd want at least an hour.
So 1 o'clock PM on the 27th or
29th.
29th? Okay, so you could prepare the appropriate notices?
Absolutely, that gives us plenty of time to do that.
Okay. Any further comments before we move on? Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Councilor Mills, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I happen to agree with Councilor Sanders. I cannot presume to say I know what's best for the health of the people that live here. I'm not a doctor. So maybe there's something, I mean, I believe that we have to have some sort of finding that we think it's in the best interest of the citizens. That's why we're doing it. I think it has to be in there, but I think we need to work on some language for that, so.
We need, yeah, again, Council President Mills was very gracious in getting this prepared for the meeting tonight, just so you have something to look at, something to make you think about. We'll run it by legal. I did speak with Emily at Spear Hoyt today, and we were talking about zoning and development code chapter 155, but she asked me what we were doing about medical marijuana dispensaries. I said it's on tonight's agenda. It's been on almost, I believe it's on every city council's agenda this month. And kind of a little bit to address Councilor Anderson Scarberry. I'm not sure who asked about other cities, but if you look at the list of cities in Oregon, a decision is pending in all of them. Probably a half a dozen have said no, and probably a half a dozen have said yes, and all the rest of them are pending. So we're now part of the pending group.
Okay. All right. Thank
And
you.
we will run this through legal.
Yeah,
Emily,
it's suggested and recommended that we do that.
yeah, Emily told me that Lauren has been working on the medical marijuana dispensary stuff, so she's very, very well versed in it.
Okay.
So 1 o'clock on April 29th, and we'll announce that as a special session with one agenda item.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Agenda item 10, unfinished old business, Oregon Dunes Triathlon and Duathlon contract update.
I am very pleased to announce that that we have come to terms on the contract. The two biggest sticking points were compensation and ownership of the event ownership. And the good news is, the way the contract is written is anytime from June 30th to June 1st through September 30th, I think it is, it can be, the contract can be terminated by either party without cause. So we're not getting into a contract that we are not going to have the ability to modify if we don't like the way it's going to go. The fact is, the gentleman that has demonstrated to be a really good race director, and I'm sure is going to be a really good event producer this year, Blair Bronson, is going to put on this year's event. He wants to modify compensation. He came up with a proposal to modify compensation that's actually substantially to Dune City's advantage. I mentioned it in my report, and I'd rather speak to it now while we've got the agenda item on the table. He found an event that's taking place in Walport every year, where the city is sharing with the event production company 50% of the sponsor, of the paid sponsor contributions to the event. So any sponsorship that's directly for that event that goes to that company is paid back to the city in 50% of the revenue. In looking at this year's event, 5%, which was the proposed percentage, and even if you ran it up to 15, you still wouldn't get close to what we're going to see in actual revenue from this year's event. 5% of the anticipated gross revenue for this year's event of $19,900 was $795 or something like that. And Mr. Bronson is proposing that we get 50% of all of the revenue from all of the sponsors of this event. And this year we're going to have pretty close, we've already got $3,500 committed in sponsors, and I anticipate at least another 1,000, if not more. And the point of this whole thing is the more sponsors we have, the more paid sponsors we have for the event, the more it pays back to the city, because we receive 50% of the sponsorships. So this year already, we're sitting at $1,800, more than double of what we would have gotten if we had gone with 5% of the gross revenue. So my proposal, the point of where I'm at is we need to move ahead and sign the agreement, so we've got the agreement in place for this year. Compensation isn't an issue because we're going to get more compensation this year than we would have. And if it turns out that there's something we find we don't like about the sponsorship compensation, we can renegotiate the contract later this summer. The second piece of the contract that Mr. Bronson wasn't happy with was the event ownership. He would really like to have event ownership at some point rather than feeling just like a contractor. So my proposal is that 2 years after the successful production of this event by Best in the West Events, that the city transfer ownership. We would still maintain our contract agreement with him, we would still maintain our compensation agreement with him, but it would give him more of a sense of ownership in the event and more reason to make it become his own. So I think in the long term, we've had some people that have been very participative in making this event happen. We don't need to name names, we all know who they are. Those people are going to go away at some time, and I would like to see the revenue associated. I would like to see this event survive perpetually, and I would like to see the revenue from this event survive perpetually. And I really believe the two proposals for transferring ownership of the event after 2 successful years of production by Best in the West and changing the compensation to 50% of the sponsorships are in the city's best interest. So if I could have a motion from council, if you want to discuss that, that's fine. Ultimately, I would like a motion to get the contract approved as amended.
Councilor Sanders?
If we sell ownership of this event to him after 2 years, as you're proposing, if he were to go out of business or want to sell it to some other event promoter, or the event were to go away, would the city have the right to reinstate the event? And
That's a really excellent point, Councilor, and we need to write that into the contract. So that needs to, it needs to be written in that if the event production company, the EPC, chooses to sell or discontinue their involvement in the event, that it defaults back to Dune City.
And some sort of an exit clause.
Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
That's prudent.
will we retain ownership of the logo?
My anticipation would be that would transfer with the event. But that, again, that's subject to,
I believe in the contract it does speak that the city can use the logo.
we can use the logo, but the transfer, in terms of the event, it would transfer, the ownership of the logo itself would transfer. But we maintain the right to use it
Perpetually, whatever you call
in perpetuity.
Perpetuity.
You got
Okay,
it.
all right. Okay, any further questions? Councilor
I'm
Anderson?
just wondering, we were really high on the last event and that we had some of the same people, but with this new Best of the West, it's a new organization with some of the same old people, but they really haven't proven themselves.
So in as much as Mr. Bronson was the race director last year, he was probably 80% of the production of the event. At least 80% of the production of the event. So, and no, he hasn't, and that's why I'm saying 2 years of successful production by Best in the West events. That's the 2014 and 2015 event. Oh, and just an added FYI, as of day before yesterday, we had 114 registered participants for the event. So 53 last year, 114 already registered this year. So clearly, Blair has done an outstanding job of promoting the event. I mean, if we were sitting down at 30 or 40 people, which is about where we were this time last year, I would be concerned about Blair's ownership of the event, whether or not he was really going to take it to heart. But clearly, he's taking this thing and going with it. So,
Will we require him to get a business license? Or can we write that into the contract form?
technically, the event is taking place outside the city limits of Dune City, so, we can do whatever we want.
Really? I thought I saw bicycles right around my house.
But, you're right, the event does come down through the Dune City. I don't know. Our business license ordinance was passed with the intent of protecting residents from contractors, and I just don't know how, I don't see how this applies to that, so my recommendation would be to not require him to get a business license, but if you want to do that, I'm game.
I just raised the question, I don't know what the extent of your discussion is.
Okay,
Mayor?
so, yeah, Councilor
I'm
Anderson.
just wondering, what do we know about the Wallport? I've never heard of that before. And do we know what they do, how they do?
It's a mountain biking event that takes place outside of the city limits of Wallport, but it was evidently somehow or another the city was involved with that event in the the original concept and formulation of it, and moving it forward. Probably similar to how we were involved. We got excited about the opportunity. We decided to provide some seed money, and now they're reaping the rewards from it. And it's working out very, very well for them.
It's just the one event?
Yep.
So the topic of discussion is, we'll need the motion.
We either need, if the council so inclined and agrees that the two revisions to the contract are appropriate, we need a motion from the council to have me execute the agreement as amended.
Okay, Councilor Sanders?
I would like to make a motion to authorize the city administrator to execute the contract as presented with the addition of a resale clause on the event as discussed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we authorize city administrator to negotiate or to
Amend the contract as
the
discussed.
contract as discussed and execute the contract. Any further discussion, Councilor? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay, I'm looking forward to that event, and I just happen to have a countdown timer here. It's 29 days, 11 hours, and 35 minutes
Hear that?
till the start.
29 days.
Or 707 hours.
Ugh.
We also should announce, Mayor, that Dune City Council has a registered participant team.
Yes,
And
they do.
it is the,
Dune City Councilors?
He asked for a team name, and I'm not an original thinker, so I just,
Dune City Councilors, is that the
Yeah.
name? And it's Councilor Sanders and Councilor Wells. Councilor Wells is going to be on the bike, and Councilor Sanders gets to run the hill.
So it'll be a duathlon.
yes.
All right, represent, fellas.
We're gonna,
Represent.
We just want to not die.
That's what I mean, get through it, represent. Okay.
Thank you very much for doing that. I think it's a huge honor.
Oh, absolutely.
We just want to survive this.
To work around, yeah. Councilor Anderson, you have a comment?
Once a month we get that magazine from LCOG or
Mhm.
And in the front, it shows all the events for all of these cities. It wasn't in there.
We missed the boat.
We won't next year.
And
Please,
it will be
Jane.
in next month.
Okay, go over then.
I emailed her as soon as, I saw that too, I was like, oh, I thought it was in there, so I emailed it.
Okay, way to be on top of it, counselors. Ad hoc committee, let's see, so ad hoc committee for property disposition and acquisition.
Nope, item B,
No,
Mayor.
no, no.
Oh,
Triathlon merchandising.
oh, I missed one, okay. Ad hoc committee for Oregon Dunes Triathlon, I thought I was reading the same one before. It's about time for a break. Ad hoc committee, Oregon Dunes Triathlon and Duathlon merchandising, Counselor Sanders.
I would like to defer to Councilor Mills.
Counselor Mills.
Based on the last vote, I sent an email over to our guy over in, I think he's in, I don't know where he is.
Okay.
Some
Cottage
city that
Grove.
starts with a C. Thank you. Is it Cottage Grove?
Yeah.
Okay, in Cottage Grove. And then promptly left town. And when I got back, I was without computer service until last week. I think he emailed me with a proposal with like selections we need to make as to which water bottles. But basically what I sent him the email was that, you know, $1,500 for water bottles, hats, hoodies and t-shirts. Give us an
Figure it out.
idea. Yeah, give us an
Okay.
idea. So I'm sorry, my computer is not working after
Okay.
$300.
Okay, so,
I will have to ask the chairman of the ad hoc committee to call another meeting so that we can get that information and go over it and
okay, and
get
get
a
it.
recommendation, I guess, as a committee. I don't know, whatever.
I personally, I don't know how you feel about it, Sheldon, but I personally just defer to you at this point, administratively.
Just bring it?
to me.
Okay.
Just do
All
it.
right, I can do it.
Just figure it
You're
out.
talking to a man wearing a pink shirt at a council meeting, so
Okay, all right.
use your
I will do
judgment.
that.
So, and we did have a motion approved by council to allocate
$1,500.
That was last
$1,500 for the fund. So
Yeah.
basically what I should do is get a purchase order in front of the mayor for signature for $1,500.
Yeah, that's
As soon as
last
what
one.
he said, yeah, right.
All right.
You never know, it may be cheaper.
Make sure we
You never
get
know.
that done.
Okay, ad hoc committee, property disposition and acquisition, Counselor Anderson.
Okay, before we get into that, I read some of his materials, the advantage of Dune City and all things, and it said fishing and hunting and all that sort of thing, but it didn't say anything about the lakes.
What were you reading?
That's why I thought it was in here, but no one else caught it then. But anyway, it was describing Dune City and it didn't include the lakes.
Well, it wasn't anything I remember seeing, Dick, or I would have, because I'd be all over that.
Yeah, well.
This is all about the
I'll-
lakes.
I'll go back and find it. However,
I think it was in the master road plan.
huh?
I think it might have been in the plan.
In Mass Road?
In the transportation plan?
Yeah,
I
Because
think
it was-
that's right.
master transportation.
Oh, maybe because it was just talking only about the roads. Who knows? Okay,
anyway,
we'll figure it out.
love it. Remember last meeting, we discussed
It is.
that we didn't want to go too far as acquisition or disposition of properties until we had some legal help to make sure we do it correctly.
Mhm.
And Fred wasn't here last month, of course, and so we waited till he got back and was working, and he has contacted the city attorney to get information, and then has another proposal. Let's go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Yeah, with regard to disposition and or acquisition, I'm gonna take the disposition piece first. We have a landlocked piece of property down by the Westlake Boat Ramp. It's map and tax lot 1912-34-21-01300. It's lot 1300. It's a very small parcel of land. It's approximately 60, it's shaped like a trapezoid. In other words, it's four-sided and it's irregular. It does have right angles at two of the corners. So it's like a trapezoid. So it's 20 feet across at one end, about 40 feet across at the other, and approximately 60 feet long. It's a very small parcel of land, and basically we are in deed to the property. It's landlocked by a Lane County lot at the boat ramp, and it could be at some point developed for park, but It's on the wrong side of the parking lot for the park. It's on the, it's actually kind of, if you will, behind and a little bit west of the,
Yeah.
what do they call it? It's like a kiosk. Yeah. So, and I'm gonna go out with, it's actually been staked out and marked by our surveyor, and I'm gonna go out Monday and mark the points with him, and we'll be able to actually look at the points. So what we need to do is, if we want to get rid of this piece of property, we have a citizen that's interested in buying it. We need to have it appraised, and our legal advice is that we get a real estate broker so that all of the proper sales documents are prepared according to Oregon real estate law, and that we have it appraised. And we have 2 local appraisers that are very familiar with Dune City properties, and I've contacted both of them for quotes to have the property appraised, and I've gotten a quote of $400 and $450. And so I guess what I would like relative to the disposition of this lot, I know it seems like a lot of money for a relatively small piece of property, but I think it's in our best interest to get it appraised so we know whether it's worth $1,000 or $10,000. And we would present that to the council and actually hold a public hearing for the sale of this property before the council. So if the council wants to get rid of this piece of property, which appears to have little or no value to the city, I would need approval to have the appraisal done and put it on the agenda as for a public hearing. We do have an interested party in buying it. That's an adjacent property owner.
It's the pleasure of the council.
I had a question. It sounds like we don't have to go through the CCI process with it?
No.
Is it right? Good, okay.
Fred, you mentioned how the attorney said that we don't have any special laws or any.
The state doesn't have any special requirements other than we do have to have on the sale of a piece of property, we do have to have a public hearing.
Is everybody familiar with where the property is located?
Not me.
It's in the bushes behind that dilapidated kiosk.
Behind the big
Well,
sign,
that's a good description.
Yeah, the dilapidated kiosk.
behind the big sign at the Westlake Boat Ramp. And the big sign being the one on the north side of the boat ramp.
Okay.
And it is largely, it's not flat, it's really not developable, it's certainly not buildable according to our building code. So from my perspective, it's really a very limited use piece of land.
I would take the opposite. I would say it's very valuable to the city if we're trying to sell it.
I said limited use, I didn't say not valuable.
Okay, what did you say?
Where's the budget, where's the funding coming from, to pay for this $400?
We have not designated that. We haven't designated that. My only comments about this is, back when I was a counselor and chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee, we talked about this and the potential of this piece to actually, Jimmy, you and I went out and looked at it and tried to walk on it. The landlocked is the piece right in front of it belongs to the county, correct? And then immediately, there's the lake.
Right.
So,
It is technically, it's the last, it's property adjacent to the lake, to Silkus Lake.
so it's, in appearance, it appears to be lakefront. And it's actually kind of behind the existing dock. And the thought process was for kayak, handicap access for kayaks. So that's, that kind of comes back in my memory that, we should think about that and, at least consider what that committee had to say, or if anyone could think about anything that, that we could leverage it with the county to do. I don't know. But, Councilor Scarborough?
Yeah, I have no idea what kind of value we're talking about
Right.
here, but if we're paying $450 to have it appraised, and then we're paying a real estate commission, I mean, if it's only $1,000 value, I mean, you're giving it away basically.
So, yeah, okay, all right. That's thought process. We'll talk about that later. Counselor Meyer.
It seems like if we don't get it appraised, we won't have any idea what its value is.
Correct.
That seems like that's the place to start.
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
The other thing that I think is really important is, I think it's really important because it has been staked now by the surveyor. And I think it's really important for the council to go out and physically look at it, so you know. It's not as flat as it was perceived to be. In fact, it could be almost categorized as view property because it's got a fairly nice slope to it.
Okay, yeah.
It goes
I'll
up to-
try to do that. Okay.
Well,
Counselor Mills?
I know, actually, I thought that it would be somewhat less than 400 if we were gonna get it appraised, but apparently
That's
I haven't been in it for a while. But, until we know what it's worth, we don't know whether we wanna get rid of it or not. You know, if it's worth a lot of money, maybe we don't wanna get rid of it. Or maybe we do and have specific ideas of what we would use that money for. So I think we should, but again, I don't know where the money's gonna come from. Is there general funds available or?
Fred, what do you think it's gonna come to? I mean, 450 plus what?
The cost of the appraisal?
Well, I guess we can't.
All right, but that's gonna be, as far as I know right now, that's the expense.
That's the expense.
And we can negotiate whatever we can, this thought about a realtor just sends me reeling because we know realtors, we wanna obviously it'd be good to work with a broker so that we can negotiate the percentage that we pay. The thought process in my mind that we're a municipality, maybe this is something the broker wants to do free gratis or in exchange for a couple newsletter ads or.
You could just go all over,
Sure.
yeah.
So, and yet it is, it's relatively on my list of priorities.
Yeah.
But it is, at the same time, it's important.
It's important, and a citizen has inquired, so it's prudent for us to, take the issue and look at it for the citizen. So, Councilor Sanders?
Has the Parks and Rec Committee come back at some point in the history of the community with a statement of direction on this piece of property?
No.
I ask because I don't know.
It was discussed in a Parks and Rec meeting, but there was no direction, there was no vote taken, as I recall, and no decision made or no recommendation to council made. And regarding the budget question, I would propose that this come out of the motel fund budget, just because it's where our GMP money is.
I guess my question would be then, is there value in having the Parks and Rec Committee look at it specifically with a question, should the city dispose of this property or not? Because I don't know where this committee may envision, whatever. I mean, I haven't even seen the property, so I don't know, and I'm just asking.
That's a good question, that's a good point, good, reasonable possibility.
we're meeting on the 29th. Do we want to include that?
Absolutely, that'd be great if you could add that to your agenda and
Okay.
discuss it. And
In the meantime, Fred and I'll get together on some logistics.
we probably need a motion to authorize for the appraisal, if that's the pleasure, if that's how we want to proceed. Or do we want to wait for the committee to, we don't have to, it's not a fire thing, so, we got time. It's been sitting there all these years. And, to answer the question about going forward with, kayak or whatever those plans were, huge downturn in the economy, and nobody was in the mood to spend any money. So, I'm not saying that we are still, but, it's just that, that was the last thing we wanted to do was cause expenditures of money, so.
Can I clarify something?
Yes.
With the conversation that was just going on, Counselor Anderson was referring to our meeting on the 29th being our council meeting on the 29th, not the Park and Rec meeting on the 29th.
Oh, no, it was a council meeting, we've already added the marijuana to that agenda, now we could add this.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I believe the mayor thought you were talking about a Park and Rec Commission meeting.
Oh, I sorry.
Yeah,
That committee is now under Counselor Scarborough.
Yeah, so
There you go.
when is your next meeting?
As soon as my person comes back from vacation, we'll have a quorum.
And there'll be a conflict of interest relative to that particular.
Yeah.
issue.
Probably anyway.
Yeah, okay, so maybe that won't work.
That happens, a member of the Parks and Rec Commission happens to be the person that's interested in buying the property.
Well, it's reasonable because he's, he's adjacent right to it, so
I
It's
understand that,
reasonable,
but he shouldn't,
I
he
know.
shouldn't vote on a decision,
Correct.
on a recommendation to council regarding that property.
Okay, maybe we can just put it on next month's agenda, because we don't want to get that meeting on the 29th too fat. It's not going to work out, it's in the middle of the day.
I would agree, I think it's just move it to the May agenda.
Move it to the May agenda, and we'll
So is
go
there,
from there.
is there a desire on behalf of the council to have this property appraised? And have the money come out of the park, out of the motel fund?
What do they do eventually?
Okay.
I don't know, I've had several appraisals, and usually they have comparisons and comps that they do in the area, and I think you're gonna get it's gonna be a pretty short appraisal, because it's such a unique piece of property.
Yeah, actually, in conversation with the two appraisers, and that's why the appraisal's high, the appraisal estimate is high, is because it's gonna be a very, very difficult piece of property to appraise.
Oh.
Because there are no comps. It's gonna require a lot of research. And that's why the price is higher than it would otherwise be. Otherwise, I could probably have gotten the appraisal done for $300.
I would prefer to wait before we spend money to get that recommendation from Parks and Rec Committee saying, yeah, council, we recommend you dispose of it. I feel better. I just don't know what's in the minds of the community.
Well, see, the thought process on that, Counselor, was that we might just be as efficient just to discuss it as a council rather than referring it to the Parks and Rec committee, because number one, he's got an absent person that's gone, and the other committee member is the person that's interested that would have to declare a conflict.
And then in
So-
essence, there is no committee to
Right.
actually refer to. Then I'm happy with the council making the decision.
Yeah, so we'll just put it on next month's agenda. And as far as the cost of the appraisal, we can certainly, if we do in fact decide to sell it, we can negotiate that as part of, the sales agreement, that he repaid us for the appraisal, or, but I guess if we decide not to sell it, then we would be out the money, so.
Clarification, the member that's missing is the person that's speaking about that's interested in the property.
Oh,
So if I get my other two people to the next meeting, we can do that. We can talk about it.
well, maybe you can put it on the agenda, and we'll just see what comes up, and it'll be before you'll have your meeting before the next council meeting, so win-win, okay. Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on this topic?
Yeah,
Counselor Anderson?
there are two other pieces of property that we're interested in purchasing or getting the acquisition from the owner some way. And I just sort of like some directions to where we should go with that, and Fred's offered to sit down and go over some of the strategic, so we can get the best deal we can.
We've talked about the disposition side of the equation, and now in terms of the acquisition, there's actually 3 pieces of property. It's owned by 2 different property owners. And again, those are, we need to be very cautious about how we proceed. The negotiations regarding these matters would take place in executive session. But I think we need to have some kind of a plan going into it. So I would propose to meet with Counselor Anderson and develop that plan over the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Because, yeah, Counselor, he does need some direction, and, you know, we might want to also talk to legal counsel about it.
Right.
So, we're on the right, okay. Anything else from you?
You were on the committee
Mhm.
at one time. Would you remain on the committee and maybe the three of us
Yes,
get
I'd
together?
like to meet too, because I had done some research into grant funding for acquisition, and that's why I asked Chief Langwood this evening about any Homeland Security money, because we were talking about using that, if we acquire the piece of property, to use some of that for storage for emergency provisions, or, you know, for emergency situations, and of course, storage for the roadway materials and equipment, additional parking. I mean, you know, there were other things that we just kind of been bouncing around ideas, and I haven't been able to find anything along the Homeland Security lines. I'm sure there might be something roadway-wise, but I hadn't really pursued that too much. I was looking at the other piece of property, which would be more a park-related activity, and there is funding for that. We missed the deadline, but it's a grant funding that is renewed every year, and you can make application every year, and it'll take about a year to write the grant, to get it, everything in line, all the ducks in a row. The first of which is a resolution from the council to pursue it. So I want to bring that up with Fred, and in this concept of the ad hoc committee, and
Good.
make it into the plan, part right into the plan.
Good.
Perfect.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly, Counselor?
Will this committee discuss how any purchases would be approached as far as financing, because we have that restriction where we can't go into debt?
Right.
And I'm assuming you're talking about like lease option to buy, donation, you know, the whole, that's what you guys will be discussing. All right, thank you.
And then, of course, they'll bring their findings and recommendations and suggestions to the council to discuss further. Anything else, Counselor?
No, thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you. That's a tough one. Counselor Wells, Ad hoc Committee on Septic Education?
We had our meeting on the 25th. All members were present, and we welcomed another member, Councilor Scarberry, to join us. At the meeting, we had an update on our tasks that we were assigned from the prior meeting, and it was very informative. And what I liked about it, the reception, the task was, I should go back, the task was to go around to local real estate and property management businesses and ask them what their feelings were when coming on board with Dune City on early contact for any proposed purchases of real estate in Dune City or rental agreements. And our thought was if we could get people, the first contact, get them educated on the septic program early. And the response that Bonnie Allen and Susie Nevada had was everybody was on board. They thought it was a good idea.
Good.
And so I think that was very positive. The other thing Susie brought from this Local Focus magazine, Susie went ahead and got all of this information from the DEQ. The only reason I bring this is that there's rooms full of this information. This is the brand new, up-to-date, the hot off the press stuff. So that'll be perfect. This will be something we'll move on to education, we'll make in our report. Let's see. We did that, and then the next thing we did was we wanted to move on with this and get this completed. So we're at the stage of putting our report together, and I wanted each person to have time to go home and think about the things that we discussed at this meeting and come back with their ideas, what they would like to see for me to build a report on, so that our next meeting on the 22nd of April, we're going to get all that information, compile that, and then I will be putting together a report to bring to the next council meeting. We also thought it would be a good idea to invite Councilor Myers to our next meeting so he could see the direction that we're going with this stuff, and he could have kind of a head start on because it's his committee that'll be implementing this, you know, after approval from council.
Publicizing it and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and our next meeting is the 22nd of April.
Wow, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay. Okay, we're down to ordinance 225, amending chapter 32. Second reading and public comment. Councilor Mills or?
I was looking at a staff report, so.
I apologize to the council for being absent last month, but I guess first time in 4 years, what can you say? So I did watch the video of the council meeting last month on ordinance number 225. And, you know, again, as I said earlier in this meeting, our charter is written in such a manner that you have total control and total flexibility over how things are conducted during council meetings and how ordinances are adopted. You have the ability as a council, according to our charter, and I verified my interpretation of the charter with legal, you have the ability to take a new ordinance, have the first reading by title only, as long as there's a unanimous vote of council to have it by title only. You have the ability to have a second reading by title only, as long as it's unanimous vote to have that reading by title only. And in that same meeting, you can amend the ordinance in any way you choose, and that amended ordinance can be adopted by the council at that meeting, as long as the amendment, which if it's a substantive in terms of how it differs from the original ordinance, as long as that entire amendment is read out loud in the meeting. And that's according to section 34 of our charter. So, you know, there's an incredible amount of flexibility that's allowed our council in how you conduct your meetings relative to adopting ordinances. So there is no wonder that there was a little bit of confusion at last month's meeting. So there was no need to withdraw the second reading of the ordinance, but it's okay that you did. You can make changes after the first reading, you can make changes after the second reading, or third reading, or fifth reading. So again, no harm, no foul. So having watched the video and reviewed, staff went back and re-reviewed the ordinance 225 and the chapter 32 modifications that were presented in that. And as you can see in my staff report that covered this ordinance, we corrected some Scrivener errors and formatting errors and made a few other minor edits that were, again, not substantive in nature. And those corrections are now in Exhibit A on Committees and Commissions document dated 2014-04-10 as part of this month's council packet. And there's also a clean version as Exhibit A, in other words, without any red line. So you can see the changes that we made were, like I say, very minor in nature, and then there's a clean version. So regarding the discussion that took place on the emergency procedures sections 3234 and 3296 of chapter 32, after looking at the video and considering the nature of our chapter 32 code on boards and commissions, I felt that it would be a good idea to go ahead and just pull those paragraphs out of the ordinance, delete them in their entirety. Part of the rationale supporting that is Dune City, to my knowledge and all the research I've done, has never adopted an ordinance that allows our mayor to declare a state of emergency in the city should we have an emergency, and technically that is a requirement for us to be able to recover state and federal funds. So it would seem logical to me that we put together, we talked about an emergency plan or emergency document, and it would seem logical to me that that would be part of that document. We could define levels of emergency, where all of that could be well defined and the communications protocol established and so on. However, I also understand that you know, a lot of time and effort has gone into the development of these proposed changes to Chapter 32. The Ordinance Review Committee's been working on this stuff for 2 or 3 years. It was back, you know, it's been going on so long that we've had changes in personnel on the council, and that's really, really complicated Council President Mills' job. And I commend the work that the Ordinance Review Committee has done. Jamie and Steve Burton and George Burke have all been very diligent. So again, I'm going to kind of just leave it in the hand, obviously it's in the hands of the council what you decide to do with this ordinance. Clearly there was a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation of the language that was in those emergency clauses. It was, the language was intended to be informative in nature and not seeking approval, okay? And so what Renee is handing out right now is a revision to the clause that Council President Mills has prepared for tonight's meeting. And I'll let her speak to that. I support either option of modifying the language to make it more understandable. And I said that right in my staff report, that, you know, an option to deleting these sections in their entirety would be to rewrite them to clarify the actions to be taken by whom in the event of an emergency. So, Councilor Mills, over to you.
Yep, Councilor Mills, you have the floor.
What Renee just passed out was the recommended language, and as I said earlier, I was suggesting that it be included in the master road plan, but we voted to delete that paragraph altogether out of the master road plan. So now, just looking at language for chapter 32, if the council believes that there should be something in there, this proposed language, and I'd like to read it.
Absolutely, please read it.
And so I would propose that we amend that wherever it was. It's 32.34, which, by the way, there are typos in the retype. So
Okay.
we'll get together on that.
All right.
I didn't put down what page it was on, just a second. Do you know where it is?
32, 34, it's going to be different. On the red line version, it's on page,
Oh, I have to take my hands
It's on
off.
page 10. It's on page.
yeah, it's on
Yeah,
page 10.
10 of 21 of Exhibit A.
Right.
And
3296, which is,
on the red line version, yeah.
Oh, it's written.
yeah, and on page
Right.
20.
Right. It looks like this. Anyway, so it would be 32.34, emergency procedures in the event of storm or other disasters creating hazardous conditions on city streets or rights of way, or other roadway-related conditions which may be determined to be hazardous, injurious, or detrimental to the public safety and welfare, such as, but not limited to, windstorm damaged trees on city rights of way. The chairperson, or in the absence of the chairperson, the vice chairperson may declare a road emergency and take action to alleviate the hazardous condition in accordance with the Dune City Emergency Operations Plan. As soon as possible, the chairperson or vice chairperson will notify the city recorder of the road emergency declaration. The city recorder will then notify the mayor and city council. I
Easy.
think that addresses the issue of not wanting to interfere with them actually doing the work and getting it taken care of.
I think it's pretty clear.
So, having this input to the process, I'm not sure, Counselor, if you were done, but when you are done, we need to have the second reading either in full or by title only, and move ahead with the deliberation on the public comment and then deliberation on the ordinance.
True. There's a process.
Okay, so this is at the appropriate time where you would make us,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
Councilor Meyer, you have a question?
Yes, I do. In the absence of a chairperson or vice chairperson, who takes over?
I don't know who takes over the road commission.
Well,
But that'll be a discussion, so let's.
Okay. So we're gonna put that there. Councilor Mills?
I would move to read ordinance number 225 by title only.
Have a second reading?
Second reading, sorry, thank you.
I'll second that.
All right.
I heard 2 seconds from Counselor Meyer and Counselor Scarberry.
You can have it.
Okay, Counselor Scarberry, thank you.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the second reading of ordinance 225 by title only. Any discussion, counselors? Discussion, Counselor
When do
Wells.
we make a decision on the staff report or the emergency procedures? Is that after?
Yes.
Yeah, we have to read it
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
First, we need to do
Okay.
the reading by, either by title only or in full. Takes a motion, a unanimous approval of that motion to read by title only.
Oh, yeah.
Don't start that ball rolling again. Okay, there's a motion on the
I'm
floor.
not voting no.
Any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Anyone have any other comments on the motion that's on the floor to read this ordinance by title only for the second reading?
Mayor, if we could read it, I'd appreciate it, because I gotta use the facilities.
Okay. All right, okay, hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, we will read this by title only, and Mr. Hilton, would you please do that?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, ordinance 225, an ordinance to amend chapter 32 of the Dune City Code of Ordinance entitled Boards and Commissions, changing the name of said chapter, creating and continuing certain committees and commissions, providing for duties, responsibilities, powers, and limitations of Dune City committees and commissions, repealing ordinance numbers 98, 122, 163, 187, 191, and 205 relating to the Planning Commission, repealing ordinances 104, 169, and 202 relating to the Park and Recreation Commission, changing the name of the Park and Recreation Commission, repealing ordinance 209 relating to the Ordinance Review Committee, repealing ordinance 199 relating to the Revenue Committee, repealing resolution 020807A relating to the Communication and Education Committee, repealing ordinance 197 and resolution 051106A relating to the Water Quality Committee and other matters properly relating thereto. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I will now call for a 10-minute recess before we declare,
Take public comment.
before we take public comment. So it is 9:02.
Or his letter.
All right,
Hang
we're
on.
reconvening the meeting. You ready? Will the Dune City Council please come to order? It is 9:10. There was a motion to read ordinance 225 by title only, and Mr. Hilton, would you kindly reread that ordinance in its entirety for us in order so we can keep continuity?
Thank you, Mayor.
Certainly.
Correct the fact that I misread it the first time.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
Thank you. You're too kind. Okay, ordinance 225, an ordinance to amend chapter 32 of the Dune City Code of Ordinances entitled Boards and Commissions, changing the name of said chapter, creating and continuing certain committees and commissions, providing for duties, responsibilities, powers, and limitations of Dune City committees and commissions, repealing ordinance numbers 98, 122, 163, 187, 191, and 205 relating to the Planning Commission, repealing ordinances 149 and 208 relating to the Road Commission, repealing ordinances 104, 169, and 202 relating to the Park and Recreation Commission, changing the name of the Park and Recreation Commission, repealing ordinance 209 relating to the Ordinance Review Committee, repealing ordinance 199 relating to the Revenue Committee, repealing resolution 020807A relating to the Communication and Education Committee, repealing ordinance 197 and resolution 051106A relating to the Water Quality Committee and other matters properly relating thereto.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do any council members have any actual or potential conflicts of interest? Hearing none, I'll now proceed directly to the public comment period of ordinance 225. I'll now open the meeting for public comment at 9:12 p.m. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in support of ordinance 225? Hearing none. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in opposition to ordinance 225? Hearing none, I will now close this portion for public comment at 9:13 p.m. It's now for the council to deliberate on ordinance 225. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Is this part of it?
Yes.
Well, I would need to make a motion, yeah, but I didn't know if somebody had another motion. I was giving other people an opportunity.
Okay, so I'll get Councilor Wells.
Is this time I can make a motion?
Yes.
Well, I was at the last meeting, obviously, and was in the middle of that going on, and I think that the staff report takes care of what the road commission wants, and I think that it still respects the work that the Jamie's committee did. I would make a motion, I would like to make a motion, that we adopt the staff report, in particular where it says the emergency procedure section 32-34 and 32-96 of chapter 32. It's a staff's recommendation to delete these sections entirely and include their content in the emergency plan for Dune City. To me, that's the best answer. I think it works. That's what I like.
Okay. So is there a second to the motion?
I will second it.
The motion on the floor is to amend ordinance 225, adopt, excuse me, would you restate the motion?
Make a motion to, under the emergency procedure section 32-34 and 32-96 of chapter 32, follow staff's recommendation to delete these sections entirely and include their content in the emergency plan for Dune City.
Okay. And there's a second on the floor.
Who was the second?
Councilor Sanders.
Thank you.
And discussion, councilors, on the motion that's on the floor? No? Done? Good? Everyone likes it?
Is there, I'd like to ask a question.
Certainly.
Is everyone aware that under the current emergency operations plan that the road commission, if a problem occurs during a storm that we cannot handle, we fire off a call to him to initiate whatever resources we need to handle. As long as everyone's aware of that. If it's something that the guys go out and handle, they just go out and handle. And then it's included in my monthly report, like normal course of business. And I think it also designates the first commissioner on scene is basically in charge of it. And
I read that, yeah.
and there's a chain of command that goes upward and downward depending on what the situation. It leaves it fluid so that we're not stymied as to who's in charge of what.
Good.
Sounds good. Any further discussion? So, do we,
I'm, really, I apologize. I'm not clear, was the motion to amend ordinance 225
Well, it's
for the staff report?
the staff report.
To delete those two
Yeah.
sections. And it was seconded by Councilor Sanders. So there's not a motion yet to adopt the ordinance, it's just a motion to amend the ordinance.
the motion to amend the ordinance.
Okay?
And we've had some discussion, lack thereof, and there's no one, everyone seems to like it, so I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No?
Okay. Want to make comments or no?
No.
Okay. I will now entertain a motion for the adoption of ordinance 225 as amended.
I'll make the motion to adopt ordinance 225 as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt this ordinance 225 as amended.
Mayor,
Any discussion, any further discussion?
Is there an emergency clause on this?
No.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you. I'll let
No,
the motion
the
stand.
effective date is 30 days, per our charter, 30 days after adoption.
Thank you.
30 days after adoption. Any further discussion before I call the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, the motion of ordinance 225 has been adopted. It's 225. Okay, we're along to committee reports. I have a written report this evening. We're ready for committee reports, everybody? Okay. I attended the Western Lane Emergency Operations Group meeting on March 17th for Mr. Hilden, and our Chief Jim Langford showed 3 videos that he made reference to that are on the website that you can all take a look to. And they were examples of how to respond in an active shooter situation, and there was a discussion that followed. The chair of the meeting, Henry Half, requested that Dune City appoint a representative to the subcommittee established by the WELOG group. It's called, the subcommittee is called Active Shooter Planning Committee. And he'd like for us to be a part of that as a stakeholder. So how do we want to do that? I don't mind attending some of the meetings. Does anybody want to do that? Okay, are the
As it-
meetings, do we know when the committees are?
Well, Chief Langborg has done a good job of scheduling them. I think by intent, he scheduled them for the hour before the West Lane Emergency Operations Group meeting at 10 o'clock on the third Monday of the month. So it'll be at 9 o'clock on the third Monday of the month. At least that's my understanding, talking with him tonight.
Oh.
So I intend to attend those meetings just by way of, because I'm the designated representative for Dune City for WELOG. And it would be included in my monthly report. I encourage anybody that wants to attend those meetings with me or in addition to me to do so. They're very informative. Council President Mills has attended them frequently, and I know speaks very highly of them. And the active shooter program is, again, as Chief Langborg pointed out tonight, something that can affect any community at a moment's notice. And basically, all he's trying to do is make sure that all of the organizations are on the same page. So I don't expect this will be an ongoing committee. I think it will be a fairly short-lived committee that to make sure that all of everybody's action plans as it relates to active shooters are in sync.
Mm-hmm.
And once that's accomplished, I anticipate they'll disband.
Mm-hmm. I intend to attend some of those meetings as an interested party because of, some incidents that we've had at our place of business, just, to be informed about these types of things. So that was good. So got that done. Also, I was approached by the board chairman of the Florence Food Share, Mr. David Armstrong, who he's also asking that Dune City provide a citizen member to their board of directors. So interested persons can contact me or here at City Hall or Florence Food Share directly. Even though the title of the entity states that it's Florence Food Share, he relayed that it's for the general greater Florence area. Even though Mapleton does have their own, we certainly don't here, and he would very much like a citizen member or a council representation to Florence Food Share Board of Directors. So we don't need to take time right now to elaborate on that. Perhaps we could put it on next month's agenda to talk about. And so I'll be thinking about that.
Does it have to be a counselor or can it be
No.
a citizen?
He just said he'd like to have some Dune City representation. So I would say, let's, if it's, a citizen at large, just make yourself known, for that, and then we'll select a representative, because I think he's asking us to send a representative. Someone that would, you know, report back to us of what's going on.
Thank you.
And I also met with Blair Bronson for Oregon Dunes Triathlon, and it's my pleasure to announce that US Bank will be a presenting sponsor of the Oregon Dunes Triathlon. So I'm very proud of that, and I'm going to go forward. Finally, I am working on my newsletter articles for Councilor Meyer, so that's my report. Moving on to Communication Education Committee report.
Just please get me your articles, this will be my first newsletter, so if you can get it to me as quickly as possible, then I will try to put something out that doesn't embarrass or humiliate any of us.
All right. Anything else, Councilor?
Nope.
Nope. I hope everyone had an opportunity to review Councilor Meyer's news release. I don't know if you've sent that, because normally when he sends those out, we want a quick turnaround. I thought it was excellent. So thank you very much for jumping on that. Did you all see it?
The Ross Pizer news release?
Yeah.
The needs assessment? Yeah, that was actually written by staff.
Oh, okay. There you go.
But it's, we'll let Sheldon take credit.
There you go, Sheldon. Feather in your hat.
Need a lighter pinkish shirt.
It'll fade.
Okay. Councilor Mills, Ordinance Review Committee.
Neither the Ordinance Review Committee nor the Water Quality Committee met last month.
So no
So no
reports.
report.
Okay. Councilor Wells.
We started a little outside cleanup today, as promised a month ago.
Oh, stuff happens. It's looking good.
Couple more days we'll have it.
I'd point out that it was, there was some assistance by a Dune City resident that, it will remain unnamed, but we had a local resident that actually came and took the weed eater and did some work on the property, so.
I've seen that, yeah.
Cool. All right. Conservation Committee report, Councilor Anderson.
Fortunately, we had no complaints again this month. I don't know why, but it seemed like in the past, we've always had several.
April's always a busy month, but not this month, not this year for some
Yeah,
reason.
so anyway, we're grateful for that everything's going well.
Awesome.
I think some of that might be the sun shock.
Councilor Scarberry.
No meeting last month, hoping we can have our meeting next week so we can get together and talk about the piece of property
Okay.
with the members and see what their feelings are.
Okay. Mr. Hillen, Emergency Services and Administrator report.
Road Commission?
Oh, Miss, I checked you off.
It's the picture.
See the little check mark?
Yeah.
I apologize, Counselor. Please, do you have a report?
Yes, I do.
Oh, it's a good one too. All right.
It's a real one. It's a real one.
There you go.
This is not my day, so forgive me to the people watching. You have to forgive me, please. All right, the 2014 pavement maintenance project for budget submission was approved as a bid document with specifications so it can go out to bid. This is the engineer's review of it and construction of it as a spec'd out document. There were some minor amendments that needed to be made, but it was given the blessing, and the city administrator can report on its status as of now. During the discussion, and I want the council to be aware, I asked staff to do a verbatim transcription of 2 of the items in the road commission meeting. I felt it was to be beneficial for this body to see not only the business transacted, but the dynamics, the flavor, the tone of everything, and how the body works. Alder Drive was determined to be included in that bid document where the road commission can move that hillside out of the way and put the road back totally in the city right away and off of private property. And all of that ultimately would have to be contracted for Alder Drive, would have been the paving, and the rest of the streets that were in it were for slurry seals, crack, and asphalt repairs. And I don't even know what the budget number is turned out for that to be. I don't want to release it from the staff discussion because it's going out to bid. I don't want the contractors to know what our limits are. Anyway, there was a subsequent change to that occurred after the meeting, that in discussion with myself, the Director of Roads, Gary Baker, and the city administrator decided that we'd make the 2014 pavement maintenance project into 2 contract bids and have the one for the crack and slurry seals go out because it's ready to go and that's the most critical component. And the other one to do Alder Drive, and now we're talking about moving that hillside about, was it 120 feet we came up with, Fred?
Right.
There's a lot of dirt out there that have to be removed, and I, for one, am leery in moving a hillside without an engineer looking at it, and I think from a city liability standpoint that I believe the consensus would be that we want to have the city engineer to take a look at it before we do it. So we decided that we would send it out as 2 bid projects, so the one bid could go out in a timely fashion because we can do the other, on our time. That was one of the things. An issue rose out on Woodland Lane. It was brought up at the meeting where there was a driveway apron where there was no culvert approved under it, and there probably should have been. Water was coming down, it was traveling across the roadway at the back end of Woodland, and it was really eating out the asphalt away from the gravel of the roadway. And there was a mailbox that was put into the right-of-way next to the driveway apron that was in a slightly raised mound that would divert the water out into the roadways. And at the base of the hill, there was a culvert drainage pipe that was blocked by rocks. And it was thought that that was in the private property where we would have no place to take all this water. What do you do with it? Anyway, ultimately, Commissioner Palmer and I went out to the site and we identified the problem, and we were able to secure the concurrence and approval of the property owner to move the mailbox to the other side of the driveway and remove that mound so Richard could get out there with his equipment and dig out that ditch and get a good flow of drainage, and determined that the drainage pipe at the base of the hill was actually in the right-of-way, so we moved some of the blockage there so we could, with the concurrence of that owner too, put it there inadvertently. It's all good, but now we got the problem solved. And I put in the report about $100 worth of road gravel. We didn't even need that to get it done. So that's another example of Commissioner Palmer saving us a lot of money, because that would have been a couple of $1,000 right there to get them out, and it's going to save the road out there eventually. During the road commission meeting, one of the commissioners raised a concern regarding the use of city equipment by volunteers other than the road commissioners working on city roads and rights of way, and not immediately returning the equipment to the city. I think the city administrator may have some comment on that. That's on the next agenda as a follow-up discussion. Gary Baker, our Director of Roads, has notified ODOT of our intent to submit another grant application for about 97 grand for Transportation and Growth Management Program grant. And this is part of the statewide transportation system planning grant. And the details are with the city staff. If you need it, they can provide it for any of that. No activity on the culvert catch basin inventory report. It was a good month. So thank you for bearing with me.
Yes, you do have some lively meetings. Yeah. Did you have a question for Fred, or?
No, I don't know what he wants to report, and I'll leave it up to him. But that's basically what's happened, and there's some agenda follow-up on it, so.
Okay.
Nice job, Councilor.
Yeah, and again, I apologize for checking you off prematurely there.
It's the shirt. No,
It's
it's
the
the
shirt.
shirt.
Click, check, got that one. Mr. Hilton, are you ready for your emergency services report?
I'm ready, as ready as I'll ever be. Anxious for strawberry shortcake.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not attend the West Plain Emergency Operations Group meeting on March 17th, as the mayor indicated she attended in my absence. Thank you again, Becky. I did include the minutes from the February meeting as an attachment to my report. And I want to comment that, again, thanks to Councilor Sanders, who brought to my attention that the satellite phone that's located here at City Hall is really for the entire south of the bridge area and not just Dune City. And Dune City shouldn't be independently picking up the tab on that, which is not a big deal, but it's about $600 a year. So I put that back in front of the board, and the board approved them picking up the bill, and so Dune City is off the hook for that.
Oh, the whole thing?
So that's, well, yeah, $600 a year. It's basically one of two phones that WeLog has, and we should be, we're members of WeLog. We pay membership dues, and we shouldn't have to be picking up the tab on one of the two phones that they have for emergency services. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, on my city administrator report, March permit activity was really slow. Actually, it was really good timing because Renee was able to steer clear of permits for a while and occupy my desk and try to keep things going there. And as I closed on my staff report, I'm going to open and say I couldn't have survived the month of March without my staff. We have an incredible group here at City Hall that served well in my absence. So I appreciate all the help they gave us, and it's good to be back. I appreciate the patience that the council has demonstrated on my behalf. So the Planning Commission continued their vigorous activities at the helm of Chairman George Burke, working on the stormwater surface water management rule. This new language will be moved into Title 15, land usage. They also completed changes to Chapter 154 titled Soil Erosion Control and Vegetation Removal, and requested that it be submitted for legal review. The Commission also held a public hearing on Ordinance 226, as we discussed tonight, recommending approval of that regarding the Master Road Plan. The second annual Oregon Dunes Triathlon and Duathlon is scheduled for Saturday, May 10th, 2014. Verbal agreement was obtained, as I mentioned earlier, with the contract with Blair Bonson, and we'll move ahead with that. As I mentioned earlier, basing our compensation on sponsorship income obviously motivates all parties to promote additional event sponsorship. So I would encourage everyone to promote event sponsorship for the triathlon. And I know we will be doing that here at City Hall vigorously. So as most of you are aware, our new copier agreement was awarded to National Photocopy, and the machine was installed 2 days later. Charter Communications also installed a new modem for us that increased our internet speed by about 10 megabytes, which is pretty substantial. And again, as I mentioned earlier, Councilor Sanders suggested the satellite phone charge, Councilor Sanders recommended the satellite phone be charged and tested, and that was also completed. On road issues, an issue with a new driveway, a lack of culvert, and placement of a mailbox was brought forward regarding a residence on Woodland Lane. Unfortunately, I need to advise you that this was not on my watch. It was approved by the person who was our permit technician at the time. And I think it's got a little bit of a flaw of how we've got that permit structured. A driveway access permit is required for every new residence, and the permit was issued, but it was issued without a signature from the road commission, and I don't believe the person that issued it at the time realized that it was a two-sided permit and the culvert requirements are on the back of the permit. So to correct this problem from happening in the future, we'll be modifying the front of the permit to indicate that it is a two-sided permit with culvert requirements on the back. Unfortunately, a phone call to the resident by one of our road commissioners resulted demanding that the mailbox that Commissioner Sanders referred to earlier be relocated within 72 hours resulted in a complaint. It's clearly inappropriate and outside any city code for any commission or committee member to make direct contact with a resident placing demands on them. It's the responsibility of the code enforcement officer. This action created many hurt feelings and required many hours of staff and the road commission chair's time to resolve. So we need to figure out how, we can write code till we're blue in the face about how we want to restrict things, but it doesn't do anything unless we have ongoing training classes, and I'm not even sure they work because this individual has been through several training classes. You can write code till you're blue in the face, and until you get people to comply with what you've got, you still are exposed to this kind of a problem happening. Give you quick updates on the 2014 street projects that Councilor Sanders spoke to. The bid documents have already been modified, and in fact, they went out to bid today. I'm pleased to announce that Tom Hart and a gentleman by the name of Dave was up from the Dyer Partnership and met with our contract director of roads, Gary Baker, to go out and review the specifications in person, so they'll be prepared to respond to questions that come in from the 4 people that the bid documents were submitted to. This falls outside of public contracting law, so we were not required to post public notice, but we did submit the bid to 4 contractors. 1 locally and 3 area-wide. Yes, sir.
This contract was amended so that the council has the right to reject all bids because this is done before the budget committee can do its work.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, on the matter of equipment checkout, we also had an issue brought up. If you read the minutes of the road commission meeting from March, one of the commissioners was concerned that equipment had been checked out to somebody other than a member of the road commission, and it has always been the practice of City Hall to allow the Parks and Recreation Commission members and other citizens doing volunteer work on either the road right-of-way or the parks areas to check out the city equipment and use it for routine maintenance. So what's kind of ironic about this is the individual that brought it up at the road commission meeting had the air sweeper or gas-powered blower for several months, didn't have it checked out, and in fact, Councilor Sanders had to request that they return it on 3 separate occasions at road commission meetings. So I'm going to present a policy resolution to the council probably in May, maybe June, that the council will sign off on a policy that basically states what I just said, and that's, obviously it's up to the council. I would assume you want to continue to allow members of the Park and Recreation Commission and other volunteers to check out equipment to do maintenance on city property. Thank you. Any questions?
No. Nope. For the good of the order, start down here. Nope. No. Yes? No.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm good, thank you.
How big a piece of cake do we get?
Yeah, as big as you want.
Good.
Okay, all right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
That's
I'll
tomorrow.
make the motion.
Wait, Mayor.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that we are still in need of volunteers for the triathlon.
Oh.
And if anyone wants to volunteer, they can contact Blair at volunteer@bestinthewestevents.com.
Okay. Or City Hall.
Or City
Or
Hall?
City Hall, yes, and I'll take down your name, number, all the contact information, and be sure that Blair gets it.
What do we need? Specific jobs for volunteers? Do you need?
He's working on that list as we speak.
Okay, all right. So there was a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. I will adjourn the meeting at 8. No, I'm tired.
Hey,
9:41.
hey, okay.